This past Monday, Trump signed an executive order making it a requirement for English proficiency in order to be a truck driver and maintain on the road. Now, I've talked about this to a couple of friends of mine, some in the industry and some not. And every time the reaction was, "Are you kidding me? That's not already a requirement in order to drive a semi-truck?" And honestly, I kind of felt the same. I figured in order to be able to pass the written portion of a CDL test, you have to be able to read and write and understand signs and stuff like that in order to get your license. And apparently the crackdown on this has already started. Let's take a look at this video.
Couldn't believe it. Going through Arkansas, I thought it was a joke. Got stopped at the way station in Arkansas and was handed a piece of paper and it says, "Can you read and write English?" I said, "Yes, sir, I sure can." He goes, "Can you read this?" So I read it to myself and I was like, okay, I started handing it back. He goes, no, read it out loud for me. So I read it out loud for him and, it was short and sweet, no problem. He goes, "Now, can you write this for me on this paper?" And I did, and there was a whole bunch of people that had already written on it.
Okay, so they're stopping people at these wait stations and having them not only read out loud some English, they're also having them rewrite the English.
And I was actually witnessing people in handcuffs.
What?
That had been pulled in. And I was like, "What's going on?" He goes, "Oh, we've come across now that if you cannot read or write in English, that it's a $5,000 fine. And if you have a company in Arkansas that employs people that can't read or write in English, it's a $10,000 fine."
Wow. Okay, so I guess the individuals that are driving and can't read and write and understand English are required to pay a $5,000 fine. On top of that, if they are working for a company that's employing people that can't read and write English, they are being fined $10,000, the company themselves. That's absolutely crazy. That's a huge, huge fine for that kind of offense.
On the spot. If you cannot pay it, you're automatically arrested and lose your license. What a shocker.
So the way I understood the bill is if a truck driver was found not to be able to read, write, and understand English, that they would be placed out of service. I didn't realize that there was such a big fine associated with it. So what are my thoughts on this situation? Well, my first thought is that trucking is such a diverse career field. If you walk into any truck stop, you're going to see people from all kinds of walks of life. Whether it's Hispanic, whether it's Russian, American, white, black, Latino, it doesn't matter. You have all different walks of life joining the trucking community. Now, I will say about 70% of the trucking industry is exactly what you would picture a trucker looking like. Somebody like me, somebody white, somebody male. But in the 9 years that I've been a truck driver, I have seen people from all kinds of walks of life, and a lot of them are fantastic people. Most are even willing to give you the shirt off their back. I've had several interactions with folks that speak a different language, and I was able to use Google Translate in order to communicate with them. For example, in a town not far from me, Dayton, Tennessee, there's a business called Lazy Boy. And you've heard about it before. They make recliners and chairs and sofas and stuff. And we had a contract there with them when we were moving trailers from one spot to another, loaded and empty, and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, there was a gentleman there that could only speak Spanish. And the lady there was letting him know, "Hey, we're closed. You're going to have to find somewhere else to park. We close the gate up at night and we don't allow anybody to park here." Now, me being from the area, I knew of a spot where he could drive a couple of blocks down the road and park for the night and be safe. But being that he couldn't understand her and he couldn't understand me, we were having a big language barrier. So I pulled out my phone and pulled up Google Translate, and I know that it's not the best, it's not perfect, but using that I was able to communicate with him and let him know, "Hey, there's a parking spot down here." I pulled up the map, showed him left turn, right turn, left turn, right turn to get to this parking spot. And he thanked me, shook my hand, and went on his way. And another time I was at a wait station, I can't remember what state it was in, but I had got pulled in. I had to take in my paperwork and show him that I was legal to drive, my truck and registration and all that was up to date, which is pretty common. And while I was sitting there, a truck pulled onto the scale. And if you've ever been to a weight station before, they have a line that says pull your steer axle here, meaning your front tires need to be on this line. This is so that they could weigh you properly. Well, the driver that had pulled up on there didn't quite come to that line. The officer that was in the weight station was communicating with the driver via an intercom. The intercom had a speaker that was placed right next to the driver's door by the scale, so anything the officer said, the driver could respond to and do what he was told. The officer said pull forward a little bit because he wasn't quite on that line, and nothing was happening. The truck didn't move an inch. So he hollered out again, pull forward a little bit. After about 30 seconds, the truck driver pulled up a little bit, and he was on the line and he was able to get a good read. The truck was within legal weight, so it was free to go. So the officer yelled out, "You're good to go." The truck again did not move. So the officer hollered out, "Go driver, otherwise I'll pull you in for an inspection." And again, the truck didn't move. So the officer went out, and by that time I was done handling my business, so I was getting out of there. So that truck driver, because he wasn't able to understand commands from the DOT officer within the weight scale, I presume got pulled in for an inspection. Now, as a truck driver, communication is one of the most important things within our industry. We aren't in an office with somebody where we can just holler across two desks, "Hey, can you get me this?" No, we have to use cell phones, we have to use text messages, we have to use other forms of communication, but the main one is road signs on the road. What street are you on? What business are you trying to get into? Other signs that read the weight limits of specific roads. Now, a lot of signs that are out on the road are just images, and you should be able to discern from the images what the sign is telling you for the most part. But then there are other signs, really important signs, in fact, for truckers that don't always have an image associated with it, and it's just words. For instance, low clearance. A lot of low clearance signs will just display low clearance and the height at which you would be able to clear underneath of a bridge. And other signs such as a 9% grade, telling you how steep the mountain is going downhill, so you know whether or not you need to use a lower gear when coming down the mountain. And many of construction signs also only display words. Now, do I think English is necessary to successfully drive a semi-truck? No, the operation of a semi-truck, just in driving it, you do not need to speak a specific language. However, in order to navigate the United States and the interstate system, I think it's imperative for a driver, especially someone who's driving an 80,000-pound vehicle, to be able to read and understand English. So what do you think about Trump's new executive order? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing? Do you think truck drivers should be required to pass an English proficiency test in order to drive a truck? Let me know down in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right? Bye.